Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are thrilled to have some time to spend with you to share with you more about the Emba program at UCI Paul Merage School of Business. You've joined us today to learn about the impact and the benefits of an Emba in an era of uncertainty. It is an unusual time. There are moments happening now we're all going to remember forever, and you want to be prepared for what's coming next. So we have a lot to share with you today. Before we get started, I just want to say hello and welcome. I'm J.R. Reisner. I am the Director of Admissions and Recruiting for the Emba program at the Paul Merage School of Business. Before we do get further into our presentation, I will ask if you have not done so already, please rename your video with your first and last name so we can know who is joining us here today. And finally, during our presentation, please use the chat box. Ask any questions you would like the panelists to address or our facilitator to ask of our panelists. And at the end, there will be some open Q&A as well. So whichever is your style, feel free to embrace that and join us on our webinar today. So I would now like to take a moment to introduce you to our facilitator. Dr. Dina Brown is a Senior Associate Director of Career Services for the Emba program, for the MBA for Executives. We are thrilled to have her on our team. We are thrilled to have her here today, and she is going to lead us through our fabulous discussion. So I'm going to let Dina get us started.
Thank you, JR. And again, I'm really excited to have everyone join us today, but I'm even more excited about the two amazing Emba students that we actually have, or former Emba students that we actually have today. And today is more of an intimate discussion. And so I look forward to hearing how, number one, the Emba has served them since they've left the program, and how they've utilized all those amazing skill sets that they got, especially during the time of uncertainty. And I would like to introduce to you first, one of our first panelists today is Miss Christy. And Christy Carlson will share a little bit about who she is, what she's been doing, and let us know a little bit more about her.
Well, thanks, Dina. Thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm so excited to be here and share my love of UCI and discuss how the MBA program, has really skyrocketed my career. So I have been in medical device sales of some kind for about 20 years. I took some time off with my kids in between. And when I came back in 2014, I realized that, I really needed to jumpstart my career to catch up really with the people that I had started out with 20 years ago. I looked around, I hired a executive career coach to help me determine what the best MBA program would be. And she helped me narrow that down. UCI was one of my top choices. I was accepted into the program, and about 6 months later, I was promoted to a VP role. So I feel that it was a really, really great investment, and I'm really, really happy that I made that decision.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to even digging a little bit deeper into your journey. And next we have Mr. Greg Mccord. Hi, Greg.
Dina, how's it going?
It's going great. Glad to see you.
Yeah, so Greg Mccoy, I'm the Global Head of Information Security for a technology company here based out of Irvine called CalAmp. Most folks know us from one of our acquisitions called LoJack for a lot of the stolen vehicle recovery. And I actually started my admissions journey, when was it? When I was back in Germany. I was on a defense contract in support of the Army. And I did one of those things that's probably not the smartest thing to do, and that was, well, I'm going to try to move my entire international family, put my 2 weeks notice in, and then start this admissions journey into an Emba program all in about a 2-week time frame. I would definitely not recommend that. I already lost my hair once, and now it's never going to come back. So it was interesting. I think one of the biggest reasons I had I had a couple, right? The first one was I didn't know anybody in SoCal. I mean, I had a good friend that lived out here, but joining the MBA program for executives, I thought it was crucial to build, as you're going to find out through this program, build your networking base, because about 51% of this is integrating with other folks, meeting other folks, and developing friendships and things of that nature. Because the work's going to be there. At the executive level, there's always going to be work. Trust me. So, and then the other reason was, I wanted to build and add more tools to my tool belt, right? So that's a little bit about me. There's plenty to unpack there. So I'm anticipating some questions, kind of where I started and how I got here. So.
All right, fantastic. All right, let's just kind of dig right in. And so my first question for Christy, and I'm sure Greg might even have some things that he might want to add on to that, but I want to talk about the whole concept of an MBA and that they're great for career change. Like you said, you kind of want to get back in and you wanted to elevate, that space. And so you hired an executive career coach and you kind of shopped around to figure out which MBA was going to be the right one for you. And so it's great for career change. It's great for business opportunities, but it requires more than a monetary investment. There's like this commitment that you actually have to make too. So how did you manage the balance and flow of your Emba program?
Well, I would say, there was a lot to manage because I live in San Francisco. And so I flew down for the at the time when we were in this program back in 2017, 18, 19, the program I was in was a 4-day program during the month. So we came down every month for Thursday through Sunday. And so I would say that as far as managing it, you have to obviously have drive and be committed. And for me, I had to hop on a plane and come down, quite often. It was worth it to me because I saw the end goal. And, I knew that I was very, very confident that this MBA was going to really help my career a lot. But, it's a balance. I mean, it's definitely, you have to juggle things. And, in a way right now, it might be easier because so much stuff is online because it's forced to be online. Because, we were all basically in class for, 40 hours for the month, with our professors. And we did do some, some Zoom meetings with our teams, et cetera. But there was a lot of in-person interaction, which was nice. But right now it might be easier almost to get started to balance it because so much of it would be online. And you wouldn't have to maybe do so much driving and so much travel. But, I basically jumped in with both feet and made sure that I had the support of my boss. My boss was super supportive of me getting this MBA. I told him that it was super important to me and he supported me. So I would say that's a critical component when you're devoting so much of your time to something besides work. My kids and my husband were both super supportive. I think that's important also to have the support of your family. And really, it's one of those things where coming out of it, I feel like I'm bulletproof now. I can pretty much juggle anything, is how I feel, because I was forced to do it with the MBA program, my career, and then my family. So, and I tell all my friends, you really have to think about the fact that if you're waiting to do something, and you don't do it, the time is just going to pass. And for this program, it's a 2-year program. And I just thought if I don't jump in now, the 2 years is just going to go by and it's going to be busy and it's going to be hard without the MBA program, with all the, juggling I do with my kids and my work anyway. But, it's one of those things where you just have to do, as my daughter says, YOLO. You only live once, right? And you have to just jump in with both feet and be committed to it. And stay the course, And
I think that's a great point, right? I knew coming over to SoCal that if I start getting embedded into the day-to-day life, I would have no time to do any type of additional schooling or anything of that nature. So I think that's a great point, and I would consider that maybe another reason why I joined the program. Having a family and moving a family. Trying to grow a network in a place that you don't know anyone. It's all brand new. I mean, it's paradise. I mean, come on. But yeah, I think that's a great point. And kind of to add to that, back to the communicative piece, I mean, you have to communicate with those around you, whether it be at work. Work has to support you because you're going to be missing a few days of work, lots of evenings. I mean, if you're already at an executive perspective, you know, you're working on those presentations for your boss, or you're meeting with shareholders or whatnot, some of that time is going to have to be sacrificed, right? Because you want to focus on this program. So just having an understanding of that, and then, you know, practicing those time management skills, right, and applying that here. Going back to your family has to be on board as well, or it's going to be a challenging experience for you. Understanding that, you know, I have at the time the program started, he was 5 years old. So, and I graduated in 19, so he was 7 when I graduated. So understanding that there's going to be a sacrifice to time commitment to your family is also something that you guys need to be aware of as well. I mean, my family was supportive. I think what I did in terms of time management, I made sure when he went to bed, and he went to bed first before I started any work or any Zoom meetings. So I was pretty strict and clear on it. Maybe that's my military background too, right? I don't know. I have a very defined schedule, and I made sure that everything fit within the schedule. Well, having kids, you try your best, right? Yeah. So my biggest why was, I mean, if I didn't do it now, you know, YOLO, you live only once. Do it now. Build the network, add the tools to your tool belt, so that you can, you know, grow yourself personally, because this is a personal growth opportunity as well as a professional growth opportunity. And for me, an added benefit was I was learning how to speak private and public sector rather than say civilian and military, right? I was coming from a military background, defense contractor. I knew every acronym under the sun as it related to military, but I didn't know any in the public and private sector. So it was a great opportunity to expand my knowledge there.
Thank you. That's what a great value add. I like how you shared that you have to create a sense of a schedule. You have to put yourself on the schedule. But what I also really love is how you spoke to your non-negotiables. Is that I was going to start this after my son went to bed. And so when you set out and you really establish those non-negotiables, then as you're planning everything else around it, it actually works really well. So thank you for sharing that, because that definitely is an integral part of being successful and thriving through the experience, not just surviving. We don't want you to survive. We want you to thrive through the experience to do that. Real quick, I'm going to go back to Christy really quick. Is that when you shared again that you got hired in a VP role, you completed your Emba, and you shared, you know, like that win, that good feeling. But if you had to think about an overall investment, like one poignant, significant overall investment return, or we call it the ROI of the experience as a whole, what would that you could attribute again directly to that Emba, what would that be? You know, if you had to kind of pull it together.
Well, Dina, I mean, the thing is, I honestly would not be in this position had I not gotten the Emba. So there's just no way. You know, a lot of people asked me before I started the program, my friends were like, why do you even need to do this? You know, you have so much experience, you know, I'm sure you could move up. And I said, you know what, I could move up, but not fast enough. Like, I need to move up quickly. And I told my husband, I have a jetpack on my back. Get out of my way. Because, you know, when my kids were younger, you know, I was devoted to my kids. And even when I was working with kids, you know, they always kind of came first. And then I took some time off to stay home with them and kind of be a part of their lives a little bit more. And so when I went back to work in 2014, I mean, I just said, look out. And so, yeah, I said that to my family. I told my kids, I kicked them to the curb, which they're grateful for now, because they can, my daughter puts her hands on her hips and tells me she could live by herself, no problem, which I told her was a good thing. And we have a good relationship. So she's very independent. I'm not a helicopter parent. So anyway, to your question, you know, I just honestly, I mean, the Emba broadened my scope in so many ways, and also with my customers. So not only, you know, being promoted was really because of the Emba, but also when I go in to see customers, I feel like I have a lot better kind of understanding of when I'm talking to a CFO or a CEO and we're having these conversations, I really feel like I have a lot of, educational background behind me to back up what I'm saying when we're talking through ROI and, pro formas and, all the things that I do in my job these days. I feel like that really benefits me. And it gives me my calling card, a little bit more stature.
It's like that Emba edge,
Yes, the
there
edge.
was that thing, and there's nothing that anyone can wear more boldly than confidence. And so having that confidence added to that. So thank you for sharing. Before I jump to the next question, Greg, did you anything?
Yeah, I was going to make a comment there. It's like, yeah, and you get to learn how to talk to CISOs. Like, man, yeah, we could be very technical in nature. Like I talked about acronyms. Yeah, now I know all the, all the InfoSec public acronyms. I just kind of tossed one in there almost. But yeah, I mean, I remember coming over and I had such a tunnel mindset, right? It was tunnel vision. Military. I'm going to be public-private sector. I'm going to be information security. I'm going to lead a program. And I mean, I kind of knew in the back of my mind, okay, I need to collaborate and work with, my peers in the executive space, right? But I didn't know at what level of engagement that needed to be. And those are the capabilities, the tools that the Emba program was able to give me, right? I mean, you go through some of the classes, some of them you may have been through before in your life, whether it be going through a bachelor's or a previous master's, but now you're seeing it from a different lens, which for me was extremely helpful. It took a lot of the trouble out of, okay, I got to do all this, research, which you're going to do, by the way, don't worry, it's not going away. You have to do all this additional work, but now all that does is kind of parts the clouds a little bit, right? And helps you focus on the key areas that'll help you grow. I remember when I started, I mean, I wouldn't be in the job I'm in today without this, right? Without this degree. And I've been promoted over 4 separate times since starting, right? So, I mean, the journey's been phenomenal. And I know I've got another promotion right around the corner. I mean, I think my head's growing. It's going to fit outside of the screen, but it's partly because of my work, but I contribute a lot of it to, I always contribute to my team, and my family, but also contributes to the program here as well.
I mean, that's such, a powerful statement, and just you sharing like the levels is that it's ongoing, and that when we're faced with that important question of why, you've talked a little bit about why, you've talked about how it impacted your career, and even, I think we've got a solid piece of, the why. It has a value add to it. And now where I feel many are asking, why should I do it right now? Why should I do it with, what's going on in the world? I don't even know what's next, because now we've had what I call a shakeup. We're entering, the 4th industrial revolution, so to speak. So why now with, COVID has disrupted the way we work and the way we learn. But what's really the norm is that this is the norm. We've been parts of disruption for our entire lives and our careers. It's just how we navigate it. And so I wanted to ask you again, and to elaborate what you started to share earlier. Why is now a good time to pursue an Emba, and how did having an Emba really help you kind of navigate a global pandemic and really equip you as a leader?
Yeah, I think, that's a big question. So I'll go back to Christy's statement. So she mentioned YOLO, right? You live only once. I mean, I touched on it when I moved over. I mean, I had a pretty strong why there. Me personally, in my head, I didn't focus on, okay, if I did this later, I might not be able to do it. I mean, yeah, once you're embedded in your day-to-day life, things become significantly harder, right? But if the way I view it is like, when I joined the military, right? When I signed that dotted line, I look at it from this perspective. If you don't take the leap, then you'll never know, right? You never know what opportunities are going to exist on the other side of there, or when you finish, writing that signature, until you actually write the signature, right? I never knew I was going to go in the military. So I took the same approach, and I said, well, I'm moving to a new place. I don't know anyone. I mean, I can sit here and I could try to be friends with my neighbors, which is always fun. We can drink outside of the back of our garages. Apparently people don't park cars in garages here. That's a SoCal thing. But okay, well, how am I going to further expand my career if I don't take this kind of a leap, right? So why not just do it? Why not? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? You go through admissions, they say no. Okay, try and try again, wipe it off, and then try something else, right? And I can even expand that to those wanting to be, entrepreneurs. You may be entrepreneurs in your organization today, but when you be an entrepreneur, it's the same type of mindset, right? It's like, okay, well, there's a lot of risk associated with this. I don't want to do this because it might impact, my family. It might impact X, Y, Z. There's a monetary, link to this as well. But you don't necessarily know until you actually take the leap. And the things that you learn once you take that leap are the things you're always going to remember. Whether it be you join the military or you join an MBA or you start a business, these are things that are going to stick with you for the rest of your life. But, those are opportunity costs, which is also something to learn. You learn about sunk cost and opportunity cost. Great times, right? So all that is, again, I keep going back to this tool belt. You have an ever expanding tool belt that you can take with you everywhere you go. And whether you believe it or not, whether you're sitting in class, you're going through marketing class, like, man, look at all those bolded letters on that PowerPoint slide. Man, can I use this in my organization? Yeah, you can actually take what you learned from your class that day and bring it back to work, which I thought was fantastic. But you never would have known if you didn't take the leap.
Yeah, and I would also just say, like, in terms of why now with COVID and stuff, I think that, Dina, what you said about, there's so much disruption right now. It's actually the perfect time to have more tools, in your tool belt, right? Because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. And, you don't know what's going to be offered or how your company's going to morph. And if you're going to be laid off and you're going to need to get another job at a different company, you just don't know. So having that Emba in your back pocket gives you a leg up, absolutely. If you're competing for a promotion or a new job, and there's a lot of change going on right now, obviously, in this country with employers. And so I think that, it's just something that there's no negative to it, right? There's just no negative to it. And I certainly think it pays itself back. For me, it's going to pay back in terms of what I spent on the MBA within a couple of years.
Yeah, just to add to that, so I've kind of skirted around the edge, right? And we're talking about a global pandemic, and yeah, in the InfoSec space, everyone's looking at Greg and say, "Hey, can you protect my data on my computer or in my application or whatever?" Right? I'm like, normally, if I was an individual contributor, right? If I wasn't in an executive role, I wouldn't be the first person they go to. But having this degree, having this MBA, you have this, I call it the aura of awesomeness in the technology field. But it's gravitas, right? You're able to walk into a room, you're able to go to a meeting, you have your thoughts where they need to be, you're able to address and anticipate some of the questions that somebody's going to ask, whether it be a pandemic type question. So when you talk about your organization, you talk about a business continuity plan, right? So who would have thought in 2020 you've had 2 hurricanes hitting the Gulf Coast, you have data centers, you have all this stuff that's going on. They're going to look to somebody that they can gravitate to, right? That is a calm sense or their center in the organization. It's like, hey, who can provide me the answers that has the most rationale? And going through all the facets that you now know from an MBA, especially an executive MBA, you're going to have a bit and piece of knowledge that everyone else is going to have in their respective roles, which is key.
I love how you both, shared how you were able to apply, and that application piece is really huge. And so what I wanted to know, what's your favorite Emba story, like from your experience, whether it was a project, whether it was a class, or whether it was a professor? I see you already laughing, Greg, so I know that you can think about that, because I'm sitting there going, man, it sounds like you had such an amazing experience. And, what poignant memory from the actual experience could you share with us? Either one. I see Chrissy still going, gosh, that one or maybe that one. No, not about the dancing on the table one. Okay, yeah, that
Yeah,
one.
I'll tell you, well,
There was an incident.
I was thinking about, like, there's memories, and then there's different memories, right? I mean, there's
Mm.
some that I probably wouldn't share. You know, it doesn't really pertain so much to the program as it pertains to making friends and socializing. Because I have some great friends out of the Emba program, some women who are just phenomenal, and I feel so lucky to have met them through the Emba program. But I think the story for me really would be walking into probability and statistics and falling in love again with math, right? And just realizing, I mean, just the phenomenal professors that they have in this program, and just, you know, loving it so much, and realizing that I'm good at it, you know. And I do a lot of you know, speaking, and we're in sales obviously, and we're doing a lot of presentations, but I just really loved the experience of digging back into those skill sets that I wasn't necessarily using all the time, but now I'm using more. And I tell you what, one of the things that came out of probability and statistics that has been so great was that we did a ton with Excel. And our instructor is like a master at Excel. And you know, he got me just fired up again to dig into that program. And, you know, I mean, I would say for me, that was one of my favorite classes, and has really contributed to my, I would say, my backbone in terms of, you know, being, you know, in a higher level position in my company, and kind of, you know, being able to contribute in ways that I wasn't able to before.
So passionate about those pivot tables, I see.
I love my success, yes.
Red feet gymnastics, love it.
What about you, Greg?
Yeah, I was fascinated by the fact, I mean, for at least from a classroom perspective, a different view, right? Because from an individual contributor role, you're expected to do a lot of this detailed analysis, right? You're the one that's generating all the data that goes into a lot of this stuff. And we get to touch on that again, because a lot of us in our executive roles, we don't always get to do that on a day-to-day basis. We're asking others to help us with that, right? So, I mean, from a memory perspective, it was nice to be able to get to do that again, but then you're able to walk the walk rather than just talk the talk all the time. So I try to apply analogies to this too, right? Yeah, I can't share that memory. But I was thinking of marketing, but I'll let you guys experience that. I thought one very important memory for me was I had the chance to be the class rep for the Emba 19 group. So I had to follow in the footsteps of the MBA 18s, which is you know, a lot of shoes to fill there. But I had a chance to lead my class to an international residential to Israel. And I thought that was interesting because a lot of the folks in my class had not been able to travel internationally yet. And so I had previous experience traveling, obviously, for the military to, you know, those wonderful places that we hear about in the news. But taking a class there, let them experience how business is from an Israeli perspective, right? From a global perspective, rather than from a United States or a Southern California perspective. It's different. It's not the same. And people outside the United States are not the same as Americans. So it's like there's this culture, and there's whole business divide that, you know, that my class had a chance to experience. And I thought, I'm summarizing a bunch of memories there, and especially what happened after we got done with the residential pieces. But I thought that was incredibly unique and something that's worth sharing.
Oh, you know what else I just thought of too? Piggybacking on what Greg said about the travel and visiting Israel as part of their program. You know, we visited Washington, D.C. Because I was in the healthcare, you know, component of the Emba. And we did healthcare policy for a week in Washington, D.C. And that was actually my favorite part of the program. It was so amazing. And it was such a well done program. And I learned so much. That is probably my best memory. I had so much fun.
Wow. Gosh, there's just, I mean, like, I'm sitting there going, I need to get some of those other stories that Greg, kind of maybe offline he'll give us the rest of the story. But I'm going to check the chat to see if there's any questions again and invite those online to actually pop any questions in the chat that we have that you would like for them to answer. And while I check the chat, I do have a final like rounding out type of a question. And so you might want to think on it prior. So here's my question. There's two parts to the question. I feel like I need a drum roll here. So if you had one word, just one, to describe your Emba experience, and then one word to describe the impact that Emba has had on your life and your career, what would those words be? So 2 words, and if they're the same, fine, you can tell us why they are, but one word to describe your Emba experience, and one word to describe the impact that Emba has had on your life and your career. And I am gonna check the chat really quick while you process that to see if we have any questions in the chat. No questions in the chat, just statements in my mind saying, wow, they're so amazing. How informative. They've answered everything I've wanted to know. What dynamic speakers. That's all the vibe that's kind of coming out of the chat. And I don't know, whoever wants to go first and tell me their words.
Greg, you go first.
Okay. So I think for me, Emba, the experience, memorable, right? Everything I've discussed, I mean, I take that with me everywhere today. I mean, you think you would forget like a lot of the work. I mean, I forgot a good chunk of the work, but you think you forget a lot of the work, but you realize how much of that sticks with you. And then the impact to me would be significant.
Okay. So is that the same word for both impact and for experience?
No, experience would be memorable. Impact would be significant.
Okay.
It's very military, right? So very concise to the point.
Yep. Like I said, I knew you would.
Yep.
All right, Christy, what do you have for us?
Well, I thought about that. So one of the gals who I became friends with in the Emba program is Beth Schnell, and she's the, I think she still is the chief operating officer for Planned Parenthood in Orange County. And she had gotten her another master's at UCLA, and it was another program that I was considering instead of the Emba. And we chatted about, the difference between UCLA and UCI, and she said, this is the most rigorous program I have ever been in. And this UCI Emba program is so extremely rigorous. So I agree with her on that. I think it's a very rigorous program. So it's not for pansies. I would say that for sure. Like, don't go into it thinking it's going to be easy, because it's not, but because of that, you also learn a lot. And as far as, how it's impacted my life or my career, I mean, for me, it's just been so explosive. It's just been such a lift for me. So I would just say explosive in terms of my career.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, we have some questions in the chat. So first question is there an Imba club for them to join, network, or learn from their seniors? Meaning those other Imbas that come before them.
I think there's a few, right? You have once you graduate, you have an alumni group, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's another group that you can join ahead of time called the Dean's Leadership Circle, which I'm also a veteran chair of. And you can join that group. I think I had to figure out when exactly you can join. I don't know if you could join before you start a program. I mean, you have to go through admissions, right? But you could definitely join that group while you're going through the program. You're learning from, we call it executive mentorship, right? You can learn from executive mentorship, which I don't know if you guys have talked about that yet in any of the panels, but you can definitely learn from those before you. And hopefully they don't tell you too many secrets as you're going through the program. For the experience, right? Yeah.
All right, we have another question. Good, they're rolling in. So what is one piece of advice you wish you were given before joining the program?
Christy's up first on this one.
Yeah, that's a good question. Piece of advice. Gosh. Oh, you know what? One thing I didn't do, I jumped into the Emba close to when, like kind of around now. I came in kind of as a latecomer, and something that I didn't complete, which would have been really helpful, was the Harvard math program. So we had access to a really rigorous math program prior to starting the Emba, and it was offered to us, but you know, I was so busy with work and kids and everything else that I thought, oh, I'll be fine. And I wish that I had had somebody tell me, look, this is going to be super significant. You can really make it a lot easier on yourself if you take this, and it, you know, it's self-paced, so it's something you can do, you know, in a month or so before you start. But I wish I'd had a little bit more of that because I hadn't been using my math skills for a while.
Okay. All right, we got more questions.
I'd like to add to that too.
Go ahead, add away.
Even though I brought it up, time management. Because you go into this and you're like, oh, okay, so it's a typical learning environment. You're going to go into this, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And then boom, opening residential happens. You're there for how many days? I don't know how it is today, COVID-19, sorry. But the expectation and responsibilities increase significantly after the first weekend. And I mean, we try to prepare ourselves, but I just want to make it very clear that, okay, just know that it's coming and leverage your group the best way you can. Leverage your team members. That's why they're there. When you join this program, you form an intimate group, or you may, you know, switch between different groups or whatever, but you form, you know, intimate bonds with those around you. And it's important to leverage those bonds because you can't do it all yourself. You'll burn out. Simply put.
That's excellent. All right, another question. What do you regret not doing in the program?
I think it's me on this one, right, Christy?
Yeah.
All right. Me personally, I thought I did a ton of stuff. I mean, I took on the responsibility of being the class rep, right? And there's a why there, right? So my why is I have a stutter. I don't know if you guys could pick up on that. Probably not. So I wanted to make sure I got in front of people, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to be a class rep, because I was in front of people I didn't know. So if for those who have a stutter, for some of us, with people that we know, there's no stutter because it's in your head, right? Your mind goes faster than your mouth, and then things start, you know, they don't work right. But going in front of people I don't know, then that's when I stop on the S's, the T's, the X's, and all that type of stuff, right? So it's very interesting. So I knew how that was in my mind, and that's why I made that leap, even though I already made the leap to join an MBA. It's like, well, let me just get out there and do it. Now, I was thinking about some things I didn't. There were other opportunities that you're presented with while you're going through an MBA, and I would encourage you to explore those. There are certain certificates, things of that nature. But I also caution, you know, don't overtax yourself because there's only so many hours in a day. And like me, I have a family, right? So I had to put that into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, to jump on that with Greg, I would say I didn't pursue all the certificates that I could have from the very beginning. And it's really not that hard to get the extra certificates if you start right away. But by the time I was really going, gosh, I want to have those certificates, it was towards the end of the program. So I couldn't obtain all the certificates that I wanted, like in digital transformation and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. If I had it to do over again, I would be more focused on making sure I take the classes to get those certificates.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know we talked around it, but I wanted to know if you had any guesstimates about how many hours a week on average did you spend on the program, classes, assignments, etc.?
20 hours.
One number. I for me, it was significant at the beginning, so I can't pin it on a number. There were a lot of hours. We spent a couple days every evening, whether we Zoom or visiting. But then once we got the flow down, it got down. I mean, we're spending, 20, 30, 40 the first couple of weeks. And then by the end of the program, it was like 5 because, we were lockstep. So we knew exactly, we handed out the taskings. All right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. We have a WhatsApp chat. So one piece of advice there is you have a standard communication medium everyone leverages, whether it be the class by itself as well as your own group. That way you just focus communication. So you don't spend as much time. Now the researching, things of that nature, you're probably going to spend a little bit more time on, but you almost, and the way the program is built, there's always one person who has more knowledge in that particular subject than anyone else. And we can leverage that person. So which drastically increases the efficiency of any of the type of research.
Yeah, I will say that we never got down to 5 hours a week. We obviously we weren't as efficient as Greg's group, clearly.
Oh, yeah. There's more stories there.
It's that military precision that he has going on. Now, did either of you focus on digital? I know, Christy, you said you didn't probably get a chance to, but Greg, did you get a chance to do anything with the digital transformation certificate?
Not with the certificate. I have a pretty broad background in that space anyway. I think for me, there was a real estate certificate I really wanted to get into. I just didn't have enough time. I'm the head of InfoSec here at my company, so I feel like I have that experience. Trust me, it's not the same as when you learn from others, right? So I try not to be too arrogant when I go into the conversation like that, right? Just being brutally honest.
I already got that. I know that. I am Mr. Digital Transformation.
I am Mr. Digital Transformation. Now, but I'm not, right? So it's very important to learn from others. And while I maybe strayed away from that opportunity, there are other opportunities I should have taken advantage of. I don't know if blockchain was still an option, if it's going to be an option this year, as well as a real estate certificate. So, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities to take advantage of.
Okay, great. Now that has to be the prize of the day.
This
is how you
digital
navigate
happening right now.
How priceless is that, right? How priceless is that? Let's see. I'm just checking to see if I've hit if I'm missing any questions. There's one question, not sure that this may be for you, but would you mentor new Emba students?
Yes, I would. I mean, if you guys want my LinkedIn information, I'm on LinkedIn. I could share that in the chat if you guys would like. You can reach out to me and I can help guide or answer any questions that you have of me.
Yeah, and I know that in the development is a formal mentorship program too, but I thought I think it speaks to your willingness to lean back, reach back and pull, with you as well.
Yep.
So I think, any other questions? I believe we hit them all. Any final words or sharing that either of you would like to say to the amazing participants today?
Well, I will go first. I will just say that I was sitting where you guys are. If there's anybody who's kind of on the fence thinking about jumping in, I was really, focused on wanting to get my MBA, but I was nervous about choosing the right program and also the time commitment. And I just decided, like I said, to follow my daughter's lead with the YOLO and just jump in with both feet, because I decided there was not going to be a better time. There's never going to be a better time. And actually right now is probably a bit more manageable than it was for us, because probably, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the classes are probably starting out for sure online, right? And so that in a way kind of makes it a little bit more manageable, that you don't have to actually be on campus. It's nice to be on campus, it's nice to interact with people, but starting out like that isn't necessarily a bad thing.
I think for me, I always try to answer a couple questions, right, before I jump into a new opportunity. One, is this something I really want to do? right? What is my career path? Is it to put my feet up on a desk and kind of hang out? More than happy to have you, right? As long as you get your stuff done. Or am I willing to make a change in my life and take something with me wherever I go, right? And understanding that, you know, there's this mountain in front of you, and at some point you're going to have to go up this mountain, right? So getting this degree under your belt, going into the business world or entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship, whatever path you want to take, or even putting your feet up on the desk, there you're going to learn some valuable skills here to help you get up to that mountain, get to the mountain top. Not just halfway up, not just a quarter of the way up. I'm talking about reaching the top of the summit and planting the flag and say, hey, I got here. So when I approached it, I imagined that there was a mountain in front of me. Am I crazy for doing it? You know, yes or no, you know, right? So I went through all this processing in my head, and I said, well, I'll never know until I actually go through it and get to the mountaintop.
Thank you. What powerful information. Well, there you have it. It has been such a pleasure. I want to say first and foremost, thank you for spending the time here and just being able to authentically share your experiences, words of advice, and your insight on how the Imba has not only impacted you in an era of uncertainty, but just period in life in general. So I truly appreciate you just being here and being with us today. And with that, I want to turn it over to Chris. I believe Chris has some other information that she wants to share. And so I am going to stop talking.
Okay, hi everyone. I just want to thank Dina for guiding us on this great conversation. It's always amazing to see Christy and Greg. It's been a while since I've been able to see you in person. As many of you guys are on this call, a lot of you guys are on different steps and phases right now in your application process. So because of that, Jennifer Reiser and I will be connecting with you guys today to help guide you as to what your next steps will be. Some of us have also asked, is it too late to apply for this fall? Well, the fact is that UC Irvine starts a lot later than most colleges. So yes, there is still time to apply for this fall, especially if you're super excited now after hearing what Greg and Christy were just talking about. Maybe if you are leaning this way, just let us know when we reach out to you today, and we can help you figure out what the timeline is and what we need to be able to get you moving forward. If you are considering fall 2021, which I think there's one person on here that I had talked to about that, she had asked in the chat when the application is available, and it is available usually right around the beginning of October. So other than that, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for spending your lunch hour, and we look forward to seeing you on campus when we can return and at UCI. If you have any questions, we'll stay on for a few moments and we can still answer the chat. Thank you guys again.